starting having the theoretical background, as I said, we have to know some definitions, or just to refresh your minds about the task-based learning. So first of all, we will talk about tasks in general and what are the differences between tasks and exercises. Then we will move to talk about task-based learning, and finally, inshallah, we will talk about collaborative learning. What is collaborative learning? Why do we use it, and how to use it at the same time? As you see, here we have, just before talking, I'm going here from the general to the more specific. Although we have collaborative learning, this collaborative learning that I'm talking about is collaborative learning activities, which is considered to be one of the types of task-based learning. But starting with tasks, as I said, can you please tell me, what do you think? What's the difference between exercises and tasks? I mean, when you have a task, what's the difference between an exercise and a task? What do you think? Are they the same? Do you consider that tasks are the same as exercises? Yes, please, Mr. Qudub.
Tasks are outcome-based.
Tasks are?
Outcome-based.
You
have a goal at the end.
They have a goal or an objective at the end. That's perfect, thank you. Any other differences that you know between, or you can just mention, between exercises and tasks? Just an objective, and that's all.
I think the essence again between the exercise and the task, is the stages included in every type, each one of them. For example, the exercises mainly can be done, without any stages. I mean, it's just an exercise which can be done in one stage. Whereas when we come to the tasks, it involves a cycle of events: the introduction, the preparation of the task itself, the working of the task itself, the reporting of the task, the reporting of the outcome at the end. So the stages, in my opinion, are the main differences between the exercise, which can be done individually, and the tasks, which involve a lot of stages.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gamal. These stages that Dr. Gamal has just mentioned are what we call here contextualization. It means to contextualize, not exercises, but actually to have these steps in order to contextualize the material itself. Anyway, we have actually three types of, not exercises, but actually of material. I mean, we have exercises and something called exercise tasks and tasks. The difference, or the main difference, is that when you talk about exercises, means you're talking about low degree of communicative purpose and contextualization. We don't have, you just have an exercise, maybe you explain something to the students, and then you are doing some kind of practice. These exercises might be included in the book, or you might just give them just a worksheet to answer some questions, and that's all. This is the normal exercise that we know. So there is no any contextualization here. I mean, there's no context, special context for this exercise. It's just to practice what you have just learned. And there isn't enough communication at all. Just the student is dealing with the exercise, and then there's some kind of self-correction, or peer correction, or teacher correction, and that's all. Moving to the exercise task, we move to more communication and more contextualization. Actually, this is contextualized practice of discrete items. This is the difference, the main difference between exercise tasks and tasks. Here we have discrete items that might be connected together in order, again, to reach a goal or an objective, as Mr. Qudwa said. But when we move to tasks, it means you're talking about a high degree of communication, and at the same time you have a purpose or a goal or an objective that is clear and specified from the beginning, either by the students themselves or by the teacher, and at the same time it has a context. This is what Dr. Jamal said when he said steps. It means that they are connected together to have a whole, or to make or create a whole situation, including some exercises. Anyway, we move now from tasks in general. Here, as you see, focus on discrete items, and when you move more to tasks, you are focusing on contextualization and purposefulness, which is related to goals or objectives. We can actually have a more detailed view, because I said that we are going to move from tasks, which is the general topic, going to task-based learning. But what are tasks? The first question is, what are tasks? Because we know the difference now between exercises and tasks. But tasks, as a definition, they are activities in which students work purposefully, as we said, towards an objective. As I've just mentioned, this objective can be set by either students or the teacher himself. And at the same time, when students work on this activity to reach this objective, either they work individually or they might work in groups or pairs. At the same time, they might work in the form of competition. They might be competing each other, and this most of the time when they are working individually, and they might work in collaboration with each other, and this most of the time when they work in groups. Which one do you think is or can be classified as task-based learning? Yes, please.
Or where they're working individually and in competition, where the other one would be more of an exercise, where they're working in a group, and so I think that might be more of a...
Do you think that this one is more of an exercise than task or activity?
Where they're working in collaboration, maybe.
They will work in collaboration and they will have groups.
It might be more of an exercise. It might not have an actual goal as often as something where...
Actually, all what I'm talking about here is tasks or activities. So we don't have any exercises here. We are talking, as long as we have an objective, it means that we are after, of course, and we are working purposefully to reach this objective. So this means that this is an activity or a task. It's not an exercise at all, because we are working purposefully to reach an objective. But again, you said that this seems to be more of task-based learning. Do you agree with him, please? Saeed, yes, please.
I'll go with the other side.
You go with the other side, that this is the task-based learning.
Like groups, collaboratively, that means, when you set the task, students need to work collaboratively. So for me, the other side is more, but I wouldn't go for the teacher. It's student-centered thing. So if I replace the teacher with the student, I would go with the second.
Okay, thank you. Any other opinions? Yes, please, Sam.
I think any of these can be considered as tasks.
Thank you very much. This is the answer. Actually, both are considered to be task-based learning because we are now working on tasks, and again, we are working purposefully towards an objective. Even if the objective is set by the teacher, this doesn't mean that the session or the class is not student-centered. No. It's put or set by the teacher, but still it can be student-centered. The class can be student-centered.
When I said I would go with the second one, I didn't mean that the first one is not. I mean the second one for me is more task-based.
Okay, thank you. So anyway, this is the point. Some people prefer to let students work individually, or the situation itself might urge the teacher to let the students work individually, or he might actually go to group working or pair work. So both of them are considered to be task-based learning activities. But which one is considered to be collaborative learning activities? I think this is clear, huh? Work in groups. We are just saying collaboration or collaborative learning activities. As long as you have this word, collaborative, this means that you are talking about working in groups. And here, we are working not for competition. The main purpose or the method that we are using here for these activities is not mainly to let students compete with each other, but to teach them how to collaborate with each other, how to cooperate with each other. This is to achieve a task, of course, or to achieve the objective. Let me say to achieve the objective, because the process of working itself, as Dr. Jamal said, the process of working itself is considered to be part of the task. And the groups are in the task. But the method they are using in order to reach their objective here in this collaborative learning activity is collaboration, not competition. Actually, when we thought about using the collaborative, especially collaborative learning activities, I mean this type especially, why not in general, task-based learning in general? I mean, why did we especially decide on using collaborative learning activities? Because one of the problems that we have in the Arab world in general and with our students is most of the time, they want to compete. Most of the time, they can't work with another one. I mean, each one wants to be the best, each one wants to be the leader, each one wants to be the one in the picture, and that's all. When you ask them to work in groups and your group is the winner, you just ask, who's the leader in the group? This is the first question most of the time. Or on the other hand, you have very shy students who stay just waiting for someone else to help them, and even if they know, they are shy to tell you about the answer or to work in the group. Therefore, we are working, or we went to the collaborative learning activities. Anyway, task-based learning activities, when we use, because again, I'm talking in general about task-based learning activities, and collaborative learning activities is included as one of the types of task-based learning. Please take care of this point. It's not something separate. I mean, you can't say, I'm going to compare between collaborative learning activities as a type of activities and task-based learning activities. No, it's just one of the types of task-based learning activities, which means that collaborative learning activities include the same traits or elements included in the task-based learning, with some exceptions for collaboration, because we're not after individual working, we are more after collaboration. So here, when the members actually of the committee that you will know inshallah by the end of this session, I'm going to tell you about the members and the process that we, the work that has been done. But first of all, you have to know that these questions were in mind while we were working. We thought about these questions. For each activity, you will find these questions answered. I mean, what are the learner's needs and abilities? This is very important, because we're not just working, we're not just creating activities book and that's all. No, we are working for special students. Is there a good coverage of the learning targets and objectives? This is what I said, because we follow the objectives and goals of Touchstone itself. And how extensive are the materials and activities? We put in mind the space of time that you have for each activity and that you have for each lesson. But later on, I'm going to tell you which type of students we can use collaborative learning activities with. And then how many steps are involved? Is the task practicable for the learners? This is one of the problems, because some of the teachers use activities inside the classroom, but they don't have enough fun. Students don't have enough fun. They're not interesting. Students are not motivated enough. Maybe because the activity itself is not practical enough for the students. Then how wide is the range of interrelated elements involved in the task, and what level of prior knowledge and experience? We consider that most of our students don't have enough background knowledge about English. Anyway, now we can move to the collaborative learning activities. I said that we are talking about, or we will talk about, what are they, why are we using them, and I think that we mentioned part of this, and how can we form the groups itself, or themselves, to work collaboratively. Anyway, when I say what, we have many definitions for collaborative learning activities, but most of them include the same elements that we will mention later. When I say why, it means that I'm talking about the benefits of using collaborative learning activities, and as I said, how to form groups to work with collaborative learning activities. Starting with what? Before actually going with what, can I ask you, after after knowing now what are collaborative learning, or just having an idea about task-based learning activities, can you just mention some of the elements that should be in any activity that is that need collaboration? I mean, collaborative learning activities should include what elements from your own point of view? Yes, please.
Students.
All activities and exercises should include students. I mean the elements of the situation itself. I'm sorry, I mean the elements of the situation inside the classroom, the education situation. There should be some elements that say or tell me that this is collaborative learning. So what are these elements? I'm sorry, yes?
You mentioned practicability. So in general, I think a lot of us might directly translate that to fun, as you said, that maybe we see how fun it is. So when the students are actually practicing something that they see as fun, everybody in general defines that as a collaborative task.
Thank you very much. So I send you on. Yes.
Yeah, I mentioned that in general we should need for any activity. We need the teacher, the student, and the
Of course, these are, yes, I understand you now. You mean the main elements for educational situation in general, yes please.
After that, we need, learning targets or something like that.
Learning target?
Yeah, we need a target to be achieved or to be, done for the students. We need, let's say, aids or
aids.
Yeah, we need a plan for that to achieve this.
A plan?
Yeah, we need a plan. I mean, and we need also a immediate plan after, achieving this.
Okay, thank you very much. All these are considered to be elements, but actually they are general elements for the educational situation in general. But what is distinct to the collaborative learning? Yes, Walid, please.
Group work.
Group work, because we are talking about collaboration.
It's a method. This is a kind of method.
Yes, that's right. But here, this is the method that you should use as long as you're talking about collaboration. Yes, Muhammad, please.
I think we may talk about group work, as has been said. We may talk about seating the chart, how these groups are going to be seated. We may talk about the clear-cut rules and procedures for what's going to happen in the collaborative activity. We may also need to talk about, which is very crucial, assigning roles and responsibilities among the group members. And there should be negotiation of meaning and cooperation to achieve the assigned goals as well.
In a way or another, all what you have just said actually is included, but it's in different elements. I mean, you went into details, and that's very good.
Because you said he was.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Actually, this is too general and this is too detailed, but perfect. Thank you. We are to the point now. We're about to get to the point. Yes, please.
I was going to say that students should know their roles.
Students should
Know what their roles are.
should know what their roles are. That's perfect. Yes.
We need a real life situation.
Real life situations.
Where more than one speaker, where more than one speaker is involved.
More than one speaker is involved. That's good. Huh? We're about to get there. Yes, please.
If I wouldn't be too general, I would say specifying a task, like Osama said, a task or a speaking situation. It should be authentic, real life.
Authentic, real life.
More than one person. I mean, a group work or whatever.
And group work. I'm just trying to repeat what you're saying because I think females can't hear us. I mean, they can't hear you because you don't have the mic. But anyway, these are the main 5 elements that should be included in any collaborative learning activity or any collaborative learning situation. They are distinct actually, and you should have them. If you miss one of these elements, it means there is something missing in the activity itself. It means you can't go as fast as possible to or as fast as you can to your objective. First of all, when we talk about positive interdependence, I'm just going to read them first. Positive interdependence, face-to-face interaction, individual and group accountability, interpersonal and group skills and group processing. You this, when Mr. Hussein and Mr. Muhammad and all of you actually mentioned parts of these, sometimes in general and sometimes in specific, but let's see each element quickly. When we talk about positive interdependence, can you just tell me what do you mean by positive interdependence here? Which one should be positively interdependent? And how can he be this way? You said the students. Yes, that's right. Thank you. So students should be positively interdependent while doing that. This means that they should, or this actually gives an indication that they will work individually, not in groups. Is that right?
No.
Why not?
Because it's positive, then it's
Interdependent, and at the same time, because it is positive, not negative actually. Do you want to add any point? Yes, please.
Perhaps the interdependence is on two levels, within the group itself, and then the groups together towards the goal.
Mm-hmm. So if we have lower students, lower level students, and higher level students within the same group, and then even groups together will collaborate together or cooperate together to reach the objective. That's perfect. So moving to face-to-face interaction. When you are dealing with exercises, you don't have face-to-face interaction. But when you're dealing with tasks, you should have this. But what kind of tasks? If students are working individually, there might not be face-to-face interaction. But because here we have groups and cooperation or collaboration, this means that we should have this face-to-face. Yes, please.
We have a problem in the second element because the furniture is not movable here on campus. So that's a serious problem, that have movable furniture.
That's right, and theorists should take this into consideration while putting, while thinking about it. But actually, I don't know if we are next term, inshallah, next semester we will be in Abu Ali. And I think furniture there is movable. No, maybe we will start this semester. But we will think about how can, this is what I'm going to talk about when I say how to form groups. This is the third point. I said what, why, and how. Now I'm still talking about what are collaborative learning activities. So moving to the third one, individual and group accountability. This is the main thing here. When I say individual and group accountability, what do I mean by the word individual here? Does this mean that students are going to work individually and then moving to work together in groups? What do you think?
Well, you're going to work together, but everyone is going to be accountable for their own work as well. So it's going to be like two kinds of responsibilities, two kinds of accountability. That the students are working together, yes, okay, they are accountable for the overall work of the group, but meantime there is an individual accountability in order to guarantee that there is not any kind of dependence. And this is the problem of cooperative or collaborative learning, by the way. You know, lots of people who applied for collaborative learning suffered from this problem, that strong students depend on weak students. The weak students depend on the strong students. And I think if this is not easy to achieve, but if it is achieved, that you can have the accountability for the overall work, but meantime every person is accountable for their own work. By doing this, you are lessening this kind of dependence on the part of the weak students on the strong ones.
Thank you very much. That's perfect. But however, let me tell you one point which is very important. When you go to why collaborative learning activities, we will see that one of the benefits of collaborative learning activities is that we avoid this point, which is the dependence of lower level students on higher level students. If you conduct this is actually the role of the teacher. And this you will see with Rani Faust, inshallah, when he comes and conduct the activity with you. You will see how, of course, you don't have lower and higher students here. But anyway, I mean, he will show you how to engage all the group, and at the same time, how to let each one in the group feel that he is responsible, he is important. If he didn't, or if he doesn't do his role well, the whole group actually is going to lose, and at the same time, no one will help him because this is his role, and the other people are busy with their own roles. You got the point? So maybe assigning roles itself, handle this point. Don't give a role which is very difficult to the lower level students. Just give something that he can handle, and at the same time, that he can help his group with. So moving to interpersonal and group skills. This is something that we don't, maybe we have interpersonal, our students, they have some interpersonal skills. But as for the group skills, when you ask a group to work together, you will find nothing most of the time. Yeah, this is one of the problems that we face inside the classrooms or our classrooms, that we can't work in groups. Maximum we work in pairs. When we say groups, we are in a mess most of the time. Because as you have just said, lower level students depend on high level students, and this is what we will see when we talk about problems now. But this is again the difference between group work in general and group work in collaborative learning activities. Group work in collaborative learning activities means mainly collaboration and cooperation, which means not just that we form a group and just go on assigning rules and reach this objective and that's all. No, we will see how can we reach the objectives collaboratively. Yes, please.
Is it possible for a student to be void of interpersonal qualities, that is totally unable to?
If he is unable to communicate well with his colleagues, this is what we will help him to do through the activities. So it's mainly to raise interpersonal skills even with some students who are not or who don't have this quality. Moving to the last one, which is group processing. This one is, let me say that it's some kind of explanation for group skills. Group processing is, let me move directly to group processing, because it talks about the points that we were talking about, the difficulty of working into groups. Here we have students should discuss how well they are achieving the goals. So it means that students should know what are the goals first, or objectives. Do you tell students about the objectives before we start? Do we tell them? Do we make sure that students know what are the objectives behind what they are learning? If you don't know the objective of what you are learning, are you going to be motivated or enthusiastic to learn? I don't know why I'm doing that. But if I have an objective and I can see it and I'm trying to reach it, so now I know what I'm doing. So if I want to know what I'm doing, it means that even the group itself should adjust themselves. Adjust the members, adjust the direction of the group all the time, just to go towards the objective. This is what I mean by discussion. And you describe what members or what member actions are helpful and not helpful. Not all member actions is helpful. Sometimes one of the students actually hinder what the other members do. So through this discussion, they can tell him that this is useful, this is not useful, and even the teacher, while monitoring the work, can tell him about this. The last one is making decisions. This is one of the points that actually we don't have in our students. Most of our students can't make decisions. And now he'll make decisions about what behaviors to continue or change. This will move to his own even social life afterwards, or to his career, whatever. We are not just talking about, let me say, doing some exercises. We are talking about a whole behavior that you are trying to change in your students. Now moving to why. Why are we using especially collaborative learning activities? And this is what you raised actually some time ago. What are the problems we face when our students work in groups? We raised this point just 2 minutes ago. So can you not repeat, but just say, this is more practical, this is more authentic now. I'm talking about our classes. So I think you can tell me about something, and all of us tried to work in groups, or let our students work in groups. What problems do we have? Yes, Mr. Khalid, please.
Well, one of the major characteristics of the society here is that people would like to be helpful to others. So students may get that wrong. By helping,
I'm sorry. People are trying to. I'm sorry. You have to say that in the mic, just to let them.
Okay. Well, some students get it wrong by helping their weak partners or students or colleagues. they just give them answers. Actually, most of the students in the same group do not work. They actually receive some information from the good students. That's the main or the most
One of the main problems. Thank you very much. Any other contributions, please?
The basic thing I want to say here is the educational background of the students, and the educational background of the students and the socio-cultural background as well can hinder collaborative learning. A lot of the students don't come from a socio-cultural point of view or from a socio-cultural background or from an educational background that supported collaborative learning, and this is one of the basic challenges here. What I would like to say here is that collaborative learning is a very nice thing, but it needs patience on the part of the teacher and the students as well. It needs perseverance, and these two things are very important because it's not going to happen overnight. It needs to take a lot of time, and it needs a practice. It needs to be part of the student's socio-cultural life.
Thank you very much. Any other problems? Of course, all of us face problems when we work in groups. Don't you have any other problems?
You can say that it's very
Sure.
short. You can say that it's
Very
very
short,
short.
yes.
Each student needs to know how much they can actually give to the group.
They need to know how much
They can give.
they can
The
give.
good student thinks he can give everything, and the weak student thinks he can give nothing. So if they just know that each person has something to contribute, then
Switch it on. Switch it on.
Thank you very much. But again, going back to Mr. Muhammad's point, although collaboration or collaborative learning, as you said, needs patience and time, but let me say that the more you link the activities, the collaborative learning activities, the more you link them to the social and cultural background of the students, the more they will get the traits of collaborative learning and can work in groups easily. Is that right? I'm just saying linking the work itself, the material itself, linking it to their own work. And this is what you will see today, by the way, with Mr. Randy. You will see actually an activity, it's a speaking activity, however, you will see all what we're saying now, you will see it in application, inshallah, in the second session. But I mean that to see it, even to judge, but actually you will not judge Randy, you will judge what we are saying. Is it achieved in the activity plan and the activity procedures or not? However, again I'm saying, you will see in the activity how much he linked, because he is the one who created the activity, how much he linked the material itself to the social and cultural background of the students, which will help them to have something to talk about. This is what we say +1. So to have something to talk about and to be able to work in groups, not just sitting like that and being not motivated, not interested, don't know what is the topic about, we don't have something like that in Saudi Arabia. This will lead to the other point, which is working in groups and how to work in groups, and the monitoring of the teacher during the process itself. While he is monitoring, he has to encourage working in groups and at the same time to tell students how to work in groups. This is what we are after, not just to let them learn the material, but even to know how to work in groups, how to be able to know, or just to understand that this group will make you a winner, not just yourself.
This is actually fantastic, and I completely agree with you. The point I was raising is what you're saying is going to
Yes.
Shall I continue? What you're saying, I agree 100% that is going to help achieve collaborative learning. But what I'm really talking about is I'm talking about real life problems that I personally encountered like 3 years ago when I started using collaborative learning. You know, having the students sit in groups, having them to work together. You know, theoretically speaking, yes, it's nice. We can sit the students in groups. We can explain the roles and responsibilities. But again, this needs time. It takes time for the students to get used to it. Look, I'm not against it. I'm 100% for it. But the point is having the students sit together, having the students communicate together, work together, understand the rules, the procedures, achieve the task together. It needs time. It needs perseverance, and it needs a lot of practice. And I'm sure that with time things will get improved. It's not going to happen overnight, as I said.
Me too, 100% agree with you, and this is our role, just to try hard. Anyway, so not all groups learning and collaborative learning, actually. I mean that you mentioned that we use group work inside the classroom, but we have problems like this. Groups arguing over divisive conflicts and power struggles, but they don't work collaboratively and cooperatively. Maybe a member sits quietly, too shy to practice, as you mentioned. And this is why we are using, again, why we are using groups in collaborative. This is the difference between group work in general and group work in collaborative learning activities. You will still have a shy student, but collaborative learning activities and the way you will assign roles and the way the activity itself is created is to help this shy one to take part. And at the same time, you might have another point. One member does the work while the other members talk about sports, for example, or something else. And all of us suffer from this point. This is, I think, what even Mr. Khalid mentioned when he said that one student think that he helps the other group. He leaves them and he just go on working on the activity and finish the task himself. So this might happen in group work in general. But if this group work is handled through the real collaborative learning processing, no, you won't have this. You won't have it this way. I'm not convincing you that we have the magic stick, no. I'm just telling that why we chose especially collaborative learning activities. Because we do that inside the classroom. We do group work. We create some activities. We do games with our students. But the point is, it's not all the time working. And sometimes it's frustrating to the teacher himself. But if we use it in this way, and this is inshallah, now we have heavy load, Mr. Randy, actually, to prove that collaborative learning activities are different from just general group work or doing some exercises, that this type of activities will help us to overcome most of the problems that we have when we handle just normal activities or exercises inside our classroom. Yes, please.
On the point you mentioned about someone doing all the hard work, I had a problem with my groups where I had a lot of low-level students, and I found when I paired them up into groups, even those students who were quiet and shied away and didn't do a lot of work, when they were in groups, at least they would do something, even though it'd be a little, and maybe it might not even be them actually partaking, but them just listening and seeing what the others are doing. So I thought that was actually more of an achievement than them just sitting there for the rest of this and just dozing off. Not being able to understand me at all. At least they understood some of it. So I think even for the shy students and the ones that are quiet, it's not a loss totally if they didn't partake as much as the ones who are, forward.
So you consider that even this passive contribution of this shy student is good, and he will learn something, and this is better than nothing. But inshallah, we will make this passive contribution even positive one through this type of learning activities. Then you do not have this situation. A more talented member again may come up with all the answers, dictate the group, or work separately, and sometimes even after he dictates the group, the speaker can't read what he has been dictated. And even if he is told the answer, sometimes he can't say. So some of the groups, you find one student doing the task, doing all the roles, the speaker, the writer, and sometimes even the time holder and everything. But this is what we want to avoid here. So, because we want to overcome all these problems in group work and in handling activities, we used collaborative learning activities. You will see inshallah. Again, still we are in why. What are the benefits of collaborative learning activities? The benefits is to overcome all the mentioned problems that we have just mentioned. Many collaborative learning activities, they enhance academic achievement of the students or promote it. Even they increase retention of the students. They make the students, the collaborative learning activities will promote satisfaction of the learning experience that the students will have. They will help students to go to oral communication, not just to write something and that's so that shy students, or even most of our students, like to write something than to say it, even they can't write sometimes. And this is what I've just said, Mr. Muhammad, about social skills. Even because of the socioculture, as you said, because of the sociocultural background of our students, they don't have this interpersonal skills needed, and sometimes this social background doesn't support working collaboratively and cooperation. But when you teach them or when you enhance their social skills, they will know how to work together, and at last they will feel with self-esteem, because you will, again, I said, individual and group accountability. So still there is self-esteem. Yes?
I would like to talk about 2 points actually, if you can give me the time. The first point is oral communication. It's very important in this regard to teach the classroom language. What is the kind of language that the students can use while they are achieving the task? This is very important before starting collaborative learning. The second one is, I'm going to mention an example that I personally used. This exercise is called Find. I'm mentioning this exercise to explain that we can work in groups and there's still some kind of individual accountability. The exercise is called Find Someone Who. In this find someone who. In this exercise, the teacher gives the students an activity and asks each student to find someone who can collaborate or work together, achieve this activity. This is one way of doing collaborative learning. Like everyone in the classroom searches for someone who he can work with and do this. A very simple question can be, how can you guarantee that this student did not simply copy the answers from his friend and that's all? Then comes the role of the teacher. The teacher then asks every single student to give an answer, and he discusses the answer with him, and he makes sure that he understands what's going on. It's not just he just give him the answer. Here I'm talking about the role of the teacher after the collaborative learning. So the teacher does not only look at the final product, oh, that's done. No, the teacher has to discuss the answer with the students to make sure that every single student actually did something. He didn't simply copy it from their friends.
Does he have to discuss it with each student or with each group?
Yeah, he can take samples in every...
With each group or with students, because there's something which I said about group processing. They will discuss this first and then they will go to this for collaborative learning activity. So is it something like this, or they will discuss it, he will discuss it, no problem, but he will discuss it with students just individually?
Actually, it's, when we talk about, because this is another point that needs to be discussed in detail. How are we going to discuss the answer? How are we going to make sure that the students actually did the task and they understand it? They didn't just simply copy it. We need to talk about this, and we need to find different strategies by which we can guarantee that they didn't simply copy.
That's right, and this is why we have practical session in which you will have application, and tomorrow inshallah we will have other 3 activities, one for writing, one for reading, and one for listening, just to show you that we can do this, inshallah, through collaborative learning activities. Yes. Okay. So, because we start collaboration, if we want effective collaboration, this means that we can't have something that occurs by chance, and this is why we said we should have objective from the beginning, and this objective should be clear for the teacher and the students themselves. At the same time, we can't be, or effective collaboration can't be based on the assumption that all students possess good social and learning skills, and this is what I'm saying here. You said that this is one of the problems when working in groups, but this is one of the points or factors that is put in mind while creating the activities. Therefore, inshallah, we can overcome this problem through these activities. And last, we have effective collaboration occurs when the essential components required for each collaborative activity are ensured. What I mean here by essential components, I mean all the elements, the 5 elements that I mentioned. If they are there, you are sure that inshallah you will reach the objective successfully, and all the students are going to learn something, not just for educational matters, but even for their social and practical life. Now, what is the difference, and this is inshallah the last situation I will ask, and inshallah we will finish. What is the difference between collaborative group and traditional group out of what we have just mentioned? This is some kind of revision actually. So what is the difference now? I want to know if you get what I've just said, or because I'm not working collaboratively here. So yes, please.
I think students in collaborative group are more responsible than before, or than traditional.
Collaborative group, the students are more responsible.
Yeah, are more responsible about their performance or something.
So this is individual and group accountability that we mentioned.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
In the collaborative group, you have, in the traditional group, you have competition.
In the traditional group, we have competition, whereas in the collaborative group, we have collaboration of negotiation and collaboration. In the traditional group, the students just work together. There is no assignment of roles or anything. In the collaborative groups, there are the roles have to be assigned and spelled out very clearly. These are 2.
Thank you, but I just have to say that even in the traditional group you might have roles and these roles are assigned, but you mentioned something which is very important. In the collaborative group, actually students should be assigned the roles and should be spelled exactly what everyone is going to do, and this is before starting work, and what's the time allotted for each one and for every part or component of the task. So this is maybe more, students are maybe students are more involved here than this one, or more organized. Any other differences, please? Yes.
I think one is task-based learning and the other one isn't. I think one of them is task-based learning, but the other isn't.
So maybe one of them is task-based learning, but the other one is not. However, sometimes you might have traditional groups working through task-based learning. If there is competition and they might actually work individually and then move to work together in groups, this can be task-based, but maybe you are still right, because this is not exactly task-based learning. That's right. The collaborative one is more of being task-based and at the same time collaboration or collaborative.
Collaborative groups are good and traditional groups are bad.
So this is the final word. We just cut it very, very, very short. This is good, this is bad. However, in education you can't have something which is totally good and something which is totally bad. Okay, so first of all, and this is the first element, if you remember, positive interdependence. Here we don't have actually interdependence at all, because we have dependence, that's right, in traditional groups, and this is why we are complaining about these groups. The second one is here you have individual accountability, but here you don't have individual accountability. You have just one, maybe only one is working for the group, or maybe the whole group is just waiting for the teacher himself to help them. So, or even each one is working individually, but even wants the outcome only for himself, or the credit for himself, not for the whole group. The third point, which is here you have heterogeneous membership, but here you have homogeneous membership. Then you have shared leadership. Let students understand for shared leadership. The leader is just organized, but this doesn't mean that he is the best one. We have here shared leadership, otherwise you won't reach your objective. But here you have just one leader, responsible to each other, but here you have responsibility only for yourself. This is individual and group accountability again. Next you have task and maintenance emphasized, but here only task emphasized. Take care of this point, please. The task and the maintenance. This is the group processing that we said. They have to discuss their objectives, they have to adjust the direction if they're going wrong, and they have to work collaboratively, as we said. Social skills directly taught, but here's skills assumed or ignored. This is what you said again. I'm sorry, most of the points, Mr. Mohammed, that you have mentioned are totally right, and I agree with you, but they are faced when working with traditional groups. If you try to change these traditional groups into collaborative ones, and again, this is what you will see through the plan, that you will have a template that I'm going to give you, inshallah, and what Randy and the other colleagues, inshallah, tomorrow will show you. Next, here you have teacher observes and intervenes, but here teacher ignores groups most of the time. Group processing occurs, as I said, no group processing. Here the group is working, and most of the time, as we mentioned, you have one leader. Responsibility is only for self, and therefore you don't have group processing. They don't have one objective. It seems that each one has his own objective. When you are talking about traditional groups, you find that most of the time each student in the group has his own objective. They are not working for just one objective. Or they don't have at least one view for the objective itself. Here you have mutual assistance, but the other one is competitive. The last one is how to form collaborative learning groups. I will leave this point because if I do it, you won't have your break. So and this point actually I will leave it just for one reason, because you will see it practically with, inshallah, Mr. Randy today, and tomorrow you will see it with Mr. Walid, Mr. Ali, and Mr. Khalid Matar.